It's 95 degrees out right now, so this is a perfect opportunity to talk about how to use grass clippings effectively. There are many different uses for grass clippings in your garden, and a lot of people don't use them to their full potential. For a lot of people, the grass clippings end when you dry them out and use them to mulch your plants. Or you take them and you put them in the compost and let them compost. Stop putting the grass clippings in the compost. There are way better ways to use your grass clippings, and I'm going to show you how. We will start with mulching. Since grass clippings are an effective mulch, they don't have to be dry. You can also use fresh cut clippings as mulch. Next, we're going to move on to fertilizer. Grass is a great fertilizer. And finally, we're going to talk about amending your soil with grass clippings in your garden. We'll look at the tomatoes, but I want to start over here with the peas. The peas that I planted super late, and I did not think these peas were going to make it through the heat. They're on about their 5th day now of temperatures in the low to mid 90s, and they still have not died, and they are growing a lot. These peas did not go in till pretty close to the end of May, which is way too late for peas, and I did not expect anything to happen with these, and I still have my doubts on if they're gonna make it, but doing everything I can to give them their best shot, because I guess I owe it to the peas since I planted them. If they don't make it, I'm out about $1.29 or so, and I'll end up turning them into more fertilizer for the fall peas. But I owe a lot of this success so far to using these grass clippings to mulch these peas, and here's why. When it's hot like this in the evening, I will spray down these root bases with cold water. That cool water gets trapped underneath these grass clippings and stays cool throughout the day. To the touch, this ground is cool. Over here, this ground is hot. The peas like cool weather, and having cool soil is helping them grow. So grass clippings are a great insulator from the heat. I didn't bury the plants with it. I still gave them a little bit of room here. Put a little extra on the sides to retain some of this moisture out here so these roots can reach over to grab this moisture that's going to stay. The heat, these peas are reaching up about 4 inches every 2 days. So we'll see how it goes. If I have to, I'll add more grass clippings to insulate these, keep giving them cool water, and see what happens. These grass clippings were fresh when I put them on. Now, a common misconception is do not put fresh grass clippings and use them as mulch. But that only matters if you do it the wrong way. If you take fresh grass clippings and stack them up, you're going to get some composting action, and it's going to heat up. It's going to get to about 140 degrees in the center of it, which is going to cook your roots. Don't do that. Put it on thin. You don't have to stack this thick because our goal here is mulch. We're not trying to take grass clippings and break them down in a compost pile into finer organic matter that we can use in the garden. Nature is going to do that on its own over time, which also makes this a great slow release fertilizer. As it breaks down, it's releasing nitrogen into the soil, all the while keeping the bottoms of your plant nice and cool away from the 95-degree sun. And protection from the sun also leads to moisture retention, which is very helpful when you have hot days like this. Let's go take a look at the tomatoes and see what we got going on over here. I watered these 2 days ago. They're looking pretty good. Let's do the finger test on this soil and see what it looks like. Move some of the grass clippings out of the way. Stick your finger down about 1 inch or 2. That is nice, lukewarm soil, and I can feel moisture in there. The sun has not robbed my tomato roots of their moisture because of this mulch on here. I'm a little thicker on the outsides, a little thinner towards the plant. I can water it, moisture still gets in, and once it's in, the sun is not going to evaporate it. And these tomato plants love water, but not too much. So I might give them a light misting later today. But for the most part, That looks really good down there. Trying to water your plants once or even twice a day because it's unseasonably warm, especially during the early times of growth like this, is really annoying. But if you have your grass clippings down as your mulch, it's gonna help you out a lot and you're not gonna have to water as much. Just make sure you do the finger test and that'll tell you when the next time to water is. While keeping our soil moist, it's also doing something else. We are fertilizing our plants by having grass clippings down. These grass clippings are loaded with nitrogen. So as they break down, they're feeding that into the soil. Just take a look at this. Look at that, all them suckers coming off there. I'm gonna have to start pulling some of these suckers off. I want them to get a little bigger because I am going to clone these tomatoes. I want to see how many plants I can get. I'm just gonna keep adding more plants to here. But those suckers will slow down the growth a bit. But look how luscious and green these tomatoes are. I've barely put any other fertilizers on these. This is all from nitrogen. Nitrogen causes leafy growth, just like this. Nitrogen is very important in these early stages. These plants just went in the ground about 2 weeks ago and they've already doubled in size. We're trying to get the foliage to grow first. After that, we're gonna start adding potassium, magnesium, all the other good stuff we need to grow big tomato fruits. But for now, this nitrogen is really helping to kick these plants off because of the grass clippings. Now look at these loofahs. Loofahs need some shade, but oddly enough, I decided to put these in one of the hottest, sunniest areas of my garden because I had extra space. But because of the proper mulching technique, all around this hill, I'm retaining moisture, which these plants love. I'm adding nitrogen, and as you can see, look at that. Even with that sun beating down on these leaves are super green on this loofah. And how about them zucchinis? They're looking pretty green over there. Let's take a look at them. Look at these guys. Except for that little guy over there. That guy's gonna need a little extra fertilizer. But these guys, and they have really blown up in this warm weather. I mulch these hills with grass, so they're getting a ton of nitrogen. But here's another use too for this. You put that mulch down and you start getting your zucchinis forming, you don't want them resting on the ground. So these dry grass clippings work perfect to set underneath your zucchinis. Another guy is starting to grow under there. We'll just scoot a little dry grass clippings underneath them. Make sure he's not touching the dirt and rotting. With all my spare grass clippings, I just started filling this whole area in. I like to start around the base of the plants and work my way out. So as I get extra, it just starts getting spread between the plants. And between the plants, I go a lot thicker because that'll make it last longer and it'll release all those nutrients into the soil. And, like we'll talk about later, it's going to amend this soil. So the sun is not beating on it. All those microbes, worms, all the good stuff underneath there is going to enjoy this soil because it's not getting cooked and dried out like that soil. Same deal with the cucumbers. Nice and green, not getting all yellowed from the sun beating on them, retaining moisture. And another thing this is good for is a weed barrier, but I did not put it on thick enough around here yet to stop the weeds. And unless you keep adding it, you're really not going to stop the weeds. Over there by the zucchinis, you see they're still coming up. If they're popping up, they're going to get that sun, and those weeds are going to try to reach for that sun. So in the future, I'll be adding more on top of them as I get it. But as far as weed control, it's hit or miss. This is a volunteer pumpkin that grew by my tomatoes. So I moved it over here on this hill to see what happened with it. And man, this thing has just blown up. This pumpkin is getting it. Look, it's already starting to get flowers on it. So as this guy grows, I'll be adding more grass clippings through here. So this plant has a nice soft spot to rest. And once the pumpkins form, they will also be resting on the grass clippings. And don't let the grass clippings stop you from weeding. You can brush them out of the way, pull your weeds out. Oh, that's nice and cool right there. A little bit of moisture left in there too, that's awesome. And when you're done, just move it back. So at this point you're probably thinking, Robbie, I knew all that. I'm already using grass clippings to mulch around my plants. But did you know what you do to your soil now during the gardening season will affect next year's harvest? So we need to do something to maintain our soil while we're growing plants, even in spots that we're not planting. So instead of tossing all your grass clippings in the compost pile and spending all that time turning it, do this instead. You'll have to pardon all the weeds I got growing here. I didn't weed this because I am not planting anything here yet. I might throw some Carolina Reapers over here in a couple days or so once they're done hardening off. A little late in the season, but that's fine. But in these areas I'm not planting, I am going to compost my grass clippings right on the ground inside the garden. Why would I take my grass clippings, move them from the yard over to the compost, sit there and turn it all the time, take it out, move it to the garden, mix it in the spring, when I can do everything right here and it can serve more than one purpose. The one purpose it's serving now is protecting this dirt from the sun. Look at all this. This is like the lunar surface. It's just pure dry dust. That's no good. That's not going to be good for next year. Over here, where I got the grass clippings, it is protecting the soil. And if we dig down, look at that. That is nice and moist. And that's just from a little bit of water going on it. So we're going to leave that like that. This is going to break down all season long. And then next year, when I go to plant, all this will be broken down and this soil will be nice and fertile. I'm going to keep adding these grass clippings in, starting with the plants working out, and just covering as much of this garden as possible with the grass clippings. And then in the fall, when the leaves start falling, those are going in here too. Over the winter, the snow's going to cover them, tons of moisture, insulate it, pack it down, and all those nutrients are going to go into the soil. This may be interesting to you if you're into the whole no-till gardening thing. I'm not really into that. Just spent $750 on a tiller. I'm going to use it. But all this matter is going to break down and form new soil. So if you want to do a no-till garden, having these grass clippings on top, composting naturally, is going to help you out. So no more grass in the compost pile till you've done all these things first. After that, do as you wish. I hope you give us a try, hope it helps you out, and thanks for watching.